Hello and welcome to this video guide for the Pathfinder Second Edition adventure path, Hellbreakers. This video covers the AP's final 3 chapters and is meant for GMs who want to run this AP, providing you with general advice to prep these chapters, followed by a recap of each chapter. For each chapter, I will also provide suggestions and tips. We will then finish with some thoughts on how to potentially continue the story after the AP's grandiose finale. If you're looking for a more general overview of the entire AP instead of an in-depth guide per chapter, you can check out my other video. The link is in the description below. Needless to say, this video is filled to the brim with spoilers. If you are playing in a Hellbreakers campaign or expect to play in one soon, stop this video right now. Without further ado, let's get into these final 3 chapters of Hellbreakers. In the final 3 chapters of this AP, the players will be involved in several skirmishes. Make sure to read up on the skirmish rules, which can be found on page 159 of Battlecry. I would also ask your players to read up on these rules ahead of time, as it will speed up encounters if the players are also familiar with this subsystem. The final 3 chapters stick to a proposed timeline, with certain events happening on specific dates. The timeline for Chapter 7 can be found on page 118, for Chapter 8 on page 137, and for Chapter 9 on page 153. The AP makes it clear that you don't have to stick to these dates, but I think having an idea of when certain key events will happen, unless the PCs intervene, adds a lot of realism. Having a few deadlines before certain events occur can put some pressure on the PCs that keeps them focused, but make sure to not overdo it. Especially Chapter 7 is a bit of a sandbox, and you should give the players enough time to have their PCs help various settlements and recruit new troops to the Hellbreaker forces. After their explosive exit from Eladir, the Hellbreakers do not have much time to recover from recent events. Cato Volonyx is tightening his grip on the country, but the heroes know now about another threat to Isger, the cult of Urgathoa. Cato is not dedicating any of his resources to dealing with this danger, and so it falls to the Hellbreakers to protect the people of Isger from an evil that has been lingering within the nation for generations. It is unclear where the cult is hiding and how the Hellbreakers can counteract whatever wicked magic is giving rise to the undead, but they are willing to do what they can to get to the bottom of this. The approach of the Hellbreakers is twofold. They will aid settlements throughout southern Isger, while also recruiting their aid to the cause. This will bring our heroes back to towns they originally traveled to at the start of their career, and reunite them with some familiar faces. The most important settlement for the Hellbreakers is the goblin town of Thorngrip. The PCs have to convince the Council of Elders that it is safe for the goblins to ally with the Hellbreakers, and that the independence of the Chitterwood will be guaranteed after Isger's freedom is won. Once the heroes have gained the support of Thorngrip, the Goblin Oracle Bracknap will join their party and aid them in finding a way to deal with the undead. Next to protecting towns and recruiting new forces to the cause, the heroes also research the origins of the undead plague. Their investigations lead them to the cursed town of Gillamore. Ilkana Eleanor, leader of the cult of Urgathoa in Isger, placed a curse on an innocent merchant long ago who died in Gillamore and spread this affliction to the entire village. The town is now an important conduit for the grand ritual Ilkana is preparing. The heroes are not the only ones who have been drawn to Gillamore, as they encounter Hell Knights of the Order of the Pike who also seek a way to put an end to the undead, and Sisters of the Golden Erinyes who have come here to investigate the disturbed graves of their order's deceased. The heroes find the roots of the curse within the grave of the merchant who brought this fate to Gillamore. While the heroes might have other options to counteract the dark magic, Bracknap offers an option that is fast and sure to work. The Oracle knows a rite that binds his own life to the land, expelling the curse and revitalizing Gillamore and its countryside. After Bracknap gives his life for this powerful magic, a magnificent tree rises from his body that shows how life has overcome death, and that a brighter future lies in store for Gillamore. In Gillamore, the heroes also find a clue that leads them to the hideout of the cult. In the diary of the cursed merchant, they read that he had scouted out Finder's Gulch before his death, and the heroes waste no time making their way there. Finder's Gulch is filled with servants of Ilkena Eleanor. While the troops that have allied with the Hellbreakers are gathering there, the PCs enter the Gulch and deal with the various minions of Eleanor while she herself is absent. While fighting these foes and exploring Finder's Gulch, they acquire valuable information about Ilkena. The child of Urgathoa is wielding a powerful scythe known as Reaper's Sigh, and has a war shard fused to her body that amplifies her dark powers. The heroes also learn that a set of relics called the Wonders of the Seasons can be used against Eleanor to weaken her, and that a ritual known as the White Queen's Thaw can further sap away her power. This knowledge will be pivotal in defeating her once and for all. When Ilkena returns, the united Hellbreaker forces face her undead hordes in a skirmish, while Alceo Demetrius performs the ritual to weaken her. After defeating her troops, the heroes face the Child of Urgathoa, using their knowledge on how to even further weaken her in the fight, and eventually defeat Ilkena. The undead threat has been eliminated, and the Hellbreakers have shown their skill in warfare against a terrifying foe. Now, the heroes and their allies turn their attention back towards Cato to weaken his iron grip on a nation that yearns for freedom. Chapter 7 highlights the importance of a set of relics the PCs can acquire throughout this adventure: Life Bloom, Bounty's Light, and Reaper's Sigh. I forgot to mention in my previous video that the PCs acquire Life Bloom in Chapter 6, at which point they may not yet realize the importance of this relic. In Chapter 7, the PCs receive Bounty's Light as a gift from the Thorngrip Goblins. Life Bloom and Bounty's Light are powerful tools in the fight against Ilkena. After defeating the Child of Urgathoa, the PCs can also take Reaper's Sigh from her. These relics use the relic rules found on page 308 of the GM Core. A large chunk of this chapter is focused on gathering forces for the Hellbreakers. You can find an overview of which units can be recruited in each settlement on page 120. You might want to create a shared document for your group, in which you can keep track of which units are currently under the Hellbreakers' command. Next to the units mentioned on page 120, the PCs can also recruit a Hell Knight cavalry brigade to the cause, led by the Order of the Pike Hell Knights Hecatinia and Hesselbeth. These Hell Knights offer you a way of showing that not all Hell Knights have sided with Chelaxian and Cato, and that there are those willing to join the Hellbreakers if it means slaying monsters that form a threat to society. The PCs will also revisit settlements from Chapter 2 on their journey to aid the Isgeri. This is an excellent chance to bring back NPCs from those locations, especially those that are important to the PCs or that the players found interesting to interact with. The PCs also return to the town of Thorngrip as they negotiate with the goblins for their aid. However, memories of the Goblin Blood Wars are still in the villagers' minds, and the growing Hellbreaker army is raising concerns about if it will one day come for the goblins of the Chitterwood. During an influence challenge, the PCs will get the chance to convince the Council of Elders that history will not repeat itself, and that the Hellbreakers respect the autonomy of the goblins. This influence challenge will most likely end with the PCs supporting the goblins in their wish for an autonomous Chitterwood. The PCs in your party might have their own views on if an independent Chitterwood is the right choice, but make it clear that this is the only point the goblins will not budge on. Considering the recent successes of the goblins during the Chitterwood offensive, described on page 117, some elders might also feel more confident to barter for more promises and assurances from the Hellbreakers. In Thorngrip, the Goblin Oracle Bracknap will join the party after he hears that they could use some help investigating the source of the undead curse. Bracknap plans to use a ritual that will cost him his life in order to cleanse the undead corruption from the land, but as written in the book, he will not tell the PCs about this plan until it is too late. If one or more PCs have built up a friendship with Bracknap in previous chapters, you might want to have the goblin confide in them about his plan, giving him a chance to say goodbye to the characters. If PCs try to convince him to not go through with this, make it clear that Bracknap does not consider the sacrifice a bad thing. He will give up his own life to purify the land, allowing a part of Isger to heal. Bracknap does not see this as his death, but more as a transition into another form of existence. If necessary, Bracknap will point out that any other alternative will take significantly more time, which is something the Hellbreakers do not have a whole lot of. This chapter also features lore for the past of Isger and the 12 tribes that once lived here. The Grotto of the Sacrificed in Finder's Gulch presents a part of the history of these people. If you have any PCs in your party with deep Isgeri roots, this section will be very interesting for them. The PCs will also find references to Jadi, the Aslanti goddess of agriculture, hard work, and self-sufficiency in this grotto. You can learn more about Jadi in Divine Mysteries on page 300. On the Day of Bones in early Farast, the leadership of the Hellbreakers gathers in Serengelo to observe the holiday and pay respects to those who fell in battle. This is an opportunity Cato Volonyx had been waiting for. He commands his forces to seize all entries and exits of the city and search for the dissidents. The heroes have to flee from Serengelo while also trying to save at least some of their allies. It turns out to be a dark day for the Hellbreakers, and our heroes will need to lay low for some time to avoid further attention from Chelaxian forces. A few days after the events in Serengelo, the PCs receive word from Genveric and Ethrin Howell about the situation in the city. Cato called in additional forces to secure Serengelo, and it seems he has kept the captured Hellbreakers alive for future interrogation. The Hell Knight commander will actually leave Serengelo for some time to pick up a Chelaxian interrogator, which offers the heroes a window of opportunity to seize a new base of operations closer to the city. Serene Manor would make for an excellent base, but unfortunately, the old mansion has been claimed by the diabolist Sophoni Hogini. Cato allowed her to perform private research there and has provided her with a security detail that is significant, but not so tight that the heroes could not slowly dismantle it. A plan is forged to infiltrate Serene Manor, carefully deal with its forces and the diabolist, and then claim the mansion for the Hellbreakers to gather their forces. The heroes have a week to complete this infiltration, and next to Chelaxian forces and a powerful sorcerer aligned with Hell, they will also have to deal with upstart Fae who believe that they can also claim ownership of Serene Manor. After a week of slowly dismantling the manor's security, the heroes face off against Sophoni and her infernal servants. Defeating the Diabolist allows the Hellbreakers to claim Serene Manor and start gathering their troops. With the news that Cato Volonyx has been delayed through unforeseen circumstances, they have even more time to prepare for the liberation of Serengelo and perhaps all of Isger. This chapter starts off with a major blow against the Hellbreakers. Depending on how things turn out, there's a good chance the players will lose quite a few of their NPC allies. The chase allows Hellbreakers to sacrifice themselves so the PCs can flee, and at some points the PCs have to choose which Hellbreaker they want to save. There's a sidebar on page 138 broaching this topic, and how to deal with players wanting to sacrifice their own PCs. While sacrificing your PC would be the heroic thing to do, it might feel weird to introduce an entirely new PC this late into the campaign. The AP's suggestion to let a player then take control of an established NPC is good advice. Narratively, this is also a low point in the story, but it's not the first time the PCs had to deal with such loss. Chapter 6 had many Hellbreakers captured, and the PCs got a chance to get back at Cato's forces and free them. This is a similar plot beat, and your players should be aware that this is the darkness before the dawn. While preparing for the infiltration of Serene Manor, the PCs get to meet Fiero Volonyx, Cato's older brother. He still lives on the ranch that is his and Cato's childhood home, and he has quite a lot to say about his brother. You can use Fiero as an excellent lore delivery system for more information on Cato's past. The infiltration of Serene Manor takes up the majority of this chapter, as the PCs have a week to get access to the mansion, learn the routines of guards, manage the local Fae, and eventually kill Sophoni and take over Serene Manor. This infiltration uses a modified version of the subsystem. Instead of gathering infiltration points, the players can only gather awareness and edge points in this infiltration. Starting on day 3 of this infiltration, the obstacles are the various rooms of the manor the PCs explore. This infiltration does not have any global AP thresholds, but some rooms have special events that trigger once certain AP thresholds have been met. The Fae in Serene Manor can be enemies, or become interesting allies of the Hellbreakers. Spring's Crown, the Empress Katrum in Room 6, can even become a commander NPC in the Hellbreaker army. I just think that it is delightful that by the end of this campaign, the PCs can command an army that contains humans, goblins, gnomes, Hell Knights, and even Fae. Sophoni Hogini is the final encounter of this chapter, and the book describes her tactics. She will buff herself while her devil minions fight the PCs, and once she has to face off against the party, will prioritize healers and casters. Depending on how well the PCs performed during their infiltration, Sophoni might have gathered some clues about the PCs and now uses this knowledge to know who to pick off first. You could even play her as an arrogant diabolist who proudly claims she knew there were enemies within the manor, but that they would be of no consequence to her. This confidence is backed up by her spell list, which includes spells such as Summon Dragon. Her Channel Hellfire ability allows her to switch a spell's damage type to fire, to which her devil companions are immune. Breathe Fire goes well with Sophoni's Widen spell shape. If enough PCs are engaged with devils in close quarters, Sophoni could get in range to cover them all with a big, fiery exhalation. While the heroes were liberating Sereni Manor, Cato's forces tightened their grip on Serengelo. Even everyday life is under heavy scrutiny now, as people are monitored and restricted within the entire city. When Captain Jordas Sorelli and the Aristilian priest Ildris Ruvara approached the occupying forces to show some leniency during the upcoming planting week, their request was not only denied, but Ildris was also made an example of by being publicly beaten and then imprisoned. Ildris' adopted daughter Nolaria fled the city in search of aid and made it to the Volonyx ranch while being chased by Chelaxian troops. The heroes gather their troops to fight off the enemies and bring Nolaria to Sereni Manor, where she fills them in on the current situation within Serengelo. With this knowledge and the Hellbreaker troops slowly gathering, the preparations for the liberation of Serengelo can begin. Our heroes spend time on reconnaissance, learning more about the enemy forces and their commanders, and prepare their troops for the upcoming battle. Once everyone is ready, the siege begins with a feint at the western side of the city, which allows the heroes to get into Serengelo and start to weaken the enemy forces from within, while also freeing fellow Hellbreakers who were taken by Cato earlier. After succeeding in defeating the Chelaxian forces, the Hellbreakers have not much time to celebrate. Cato Volonyx returns, and it is time for the PCs to face off one last time against the tyrannical Hell Knight. Will they show him the error of his ways and resolve things peacefully? Or will the heroes cross swords with Cato? No matter what they choose, once they have dealt with Cato, the heroes free Serengelo and under the banners of the Hellbreakers, lead Isger into a brighter future. The final chapter of this AP puts the PCs at the head of the assembled Hellbreaker forces, having them fight multiple skirmishes throughout this chapter. On top of that, there are a lot of combat encounters within Serengelo, so get ready for running a lot of fights back to back. One thing you and your group should really lean into is that the PCs are now the commanders of these united forces they have helped assemble. Have NPCs who used to be in charge of the PCs earlier in the AP recognize their authority and how far they have come. Provide the players with a chance to have a final round of conversations with their favorite NPCs on the eve before the battle. Make the scenes before the siege starts really feel like they're on the verge of a grand historical event, and that the PCs are in charge of how all of this will be remembered by Golarian's historians. Throughout this chapter, the players accrue liberation points. Be aware that they already got some liberation points in Chapter 8, depending on how well they performed during the infiltration of Sereni Manor. Just like reputation, keeping track of liberation points can definitely be outsourced to one of your players. I am a really big fan of how they reflavored the research subsystem for the recon early in the chapter. Imagining the PCs traveling around the area as they gather information sounds super fun, and allows you to work the roles into a montage of information gathering and espionage. I'm usually not a big fan of a research subsystem, but this is a cool way of presenting it. Vairo Ahala, the Hell Knight Armiger the PCs defeated in Chapter 3, is back in this chapter. He has been summoned from Hell in a fiendish form, and he will not rest until he has defeated the PCs. Considering their last encounter with him was 6 chapters ago, and his name has probably not come up much since then, the players' NPCs might have a little "who are you" moment, which would make Ahala all the more driven to exact his vengeance on the heroes. Hellbreakers offers a number of ways to continue the adventure into the higher levels. The chapter Continuing the Campaign, starting on page 169, provides a few ideas that you could easily spin into campaigns that lead your players into those higher levels. My favorite of these is Scourge Home Relations, as I think many players will enjoy helping the goblins establish their own nation. I'm not sure if it provides enough material for an adventure that will get your PCs to the highest levels, but it would make for a fun follow-up story after wrapping up Hellbreakers. If the players enjoyed learning about the relics known as the Wonders of Seasons, which they use in their fight against Elkana, using the hooks presented under Seeking Woe is a good option. I do think that a quest for a magic item will make for a big tonal shift after the PCs have spent so many levels liberating a nation. Of course, if your players are up for it, go and have fun questing for the final Wonder of Seasons. Personally, I think the most interesting way to follow up on Hellbreakers is crafting a story in which we see how the PCs take on positions of power within Isger. If your players enjoy a little bit of political drama, the PCs could set themselves up as some kind of interim government of the nation, while also reaching out to neighboring nations to find strong allies in their continued struggle against Chelaxian. Isger gaining its independence is an interesting change of Golarian's status quo, and giving your players the chance to become heavily involved in this historical event is a great opportunity. Of course, you could also see if you can bring the PCs from Hellbreakers into Hell's Destiny. You will have to find ways of tying these two APs together, but moving into Hell's Destiny allows you to offer your players another story that focuses on fighting against the tyranny of House Thrune and Chelaxian. Definitely also check out Hellfire Dispatches for more information on the Hellfire Crisis and potentially more ideas on how to continue your campaign. And that's it for the final 3 chapters of Hellbreakers. I would love to hear about your table's experiences and how you and your players wrap up this tale of freedom and revolution. Sound off in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Stay safe, take care, and bye-bye.